Hey everyone, it's FLAK Fire. It's been a wild ride for Battlefield 2042. Now, a year after launch, some of you might be wondering if the game has improved, if it's worth your time, or more importantly, your dollar. For this video, we're going to break all of that down. Before we get to that, I recently reviewed the indie World War I shooter Izanzo at gimme.co. I was pleasantly surprised, so if you want more on that, check it out using the link in the video description. I break down some of the pros and cons of the game, and you can even ask me questions directly. So make sure to follow me on Gimme and check back regularly for new reviews. That said, Battlefield 2042, what a journey it has been. The game released to widespread criticism on the heels of another maligned title in Battlefield 5. Player expectation was high, and the subsequent disappointment seemed to hit harder. Developers made some more than questionable decisions during development, like the specialist system and bumping player count to 128. Technical problems also plagued the game's launch, and combined with some bad press, that hamstrung it out of the gate. However, DICE did promise to stick by the game, and, well, has that materialized? Let's find out. For this video, we're going to be breaking down the first year of Battlefield 2042 by maps, weapons, vehicles, specialists, portals, live service, performance, and other issues as sort of a catch-all. For maps, Battlefield 2042's launch maps were underwhelming. Despite having 13 maps at launch, only 7 of those saw regular rotation as part of the game. The other 5 were classic maps and mainly reserved for the game's portal mode. This has been largely rectified through the game's Exodus Conquest mode, which includes a few of the legacy maps in an official game mode, but this regularly falls in and out of rotation. Battlefield 2042's huge core maps were initially sparse affairs, featuring a lot of open ground between objectives. This was not conducive to interesting gameplay, resulting in irritatingly long jogs between objectives under sniper fire from several directions. From a narrative standpoint, they also failed to sell a dystopian world ravaged by ecological crisis and war. Everything was just a bit too clean, and over the last year, DICE have reworked many of the original OG maps. Renewal, Orbital, and Kaleidoscope have all received significant redesigns, with Manifest and Breakaway next in line. The update significantly improved gameplay and atmosphere on the maps, though it also reveals Battlefield 2042 clearly needed more time in the oven. Perhaps reflecting this, the maps added to the game since launch have been a cut above the rest. Exposure, Stranded, and Spearhead are all more engaging than their predecessors, with Exposure and Stranded in particular addressing a lack of close-quarters infantry combat on launch maps. The number of post-launch maps is disappointing, but I will address that in a different section. Battlefield 2042's weapon offerings were slim out of the gate as well. To their credit, DICE added quite a few new options, including pulling from a pool of portal weapons. The Plus system was a great inclusion to the game, and it sort of tricks you into thinking there are more weapons in the game than there actually are. It also gives you flexibility in the heat of battle, which positively impacts gameplay and offers a new dimension of skill. Developers have said it's important that new weapons feel unique and fill a gameplay niche, and to their credit, the new weapons have in fact largely done that. On the topic of vehicles in the game, Battlefield 2042 has seen the same kind of knee-jerk balancing we've come to expect over the years. The Bolt and the 50 caliber cannon have been nerfed into the ground over the last year, and sadly we can no longer climb skyscrapers and hovercrafts anymore. However, like weapons, new vehicles have filled niches in the game well. The addition of the EBLC Ram combines both speed and firepower in challenging ways, while the new Tor tank adds a railgun and 2 mobility modes to the mix. The unarmed Polaris Razor is an underrated addition, while the stealth choppers remain a problem. The biggest and perhaps most meaningful change for vehicles is DICE's reorganization of the categories for them in Battlefield 2042. This ensures a more varied vehicle experience and prevents a team from running only the most broken vehicles. It also means players won't have to make a choice between, say, a MAV and an air transport vehicle, which helps address the issues created by such large maps. Specialists have also been a special point of contention between developers and the community. DICE have been adamant from the beginning that specialists aren't going away, rather, they're evolving. And while that certainly is true, it is clear that DICE have walked back specialists significantly. From ditching the cheesy end of round lines to reworking their in-game dialogue and appearances, specialists now better suit the game's gameplay and atmosphere. In the future, DICE are also introducing weapon proficiencies and gadget restrictions to specialists to help players size up enemy capabilities on the battlefield. This will pretty much bring the game in line with previous titles, save for the obvious visual differences between specialists and their unique gadgets and abilities, but absolutely wild that it's taken almost a year to get to this point when the class system was never broken to begin with. DICE have also mostly resolved friend or foe identification issues with glow sticks, though it arguably dumbs down the gunplay into shooting at Christmas lights. Meanwhile, Portal remains the unsung hero of hardcore Battlefield 2042 fans. From the beginning, DICE gave players some really great tools to build out their own unique experiences. This included a logic editor, which developers have actually steadily expanded over the past year. You can now create some pretty wild things in Portal, from a zombie game mode to gun game and even a squid-inspired red light, green light mode. I've even seen a wingsuit trainer. It's unfortunate then that the bulk of the games found in the Portal browser are seemingly just for XP boosting. Similarly, many interesting game modes go unfilled because Portal exists largely separate from the rest of the game experience. I will say that AI bots outperformed my expectations and do at least make some custom game experiences playable. For Battlefield 2042's live service, there's just no getting around the fact that it's a disappointment for longtime fans. Every season leading up to this point has featured a single new map, a specialist, and a handful of weapons and vehicles. Compared to previous titles, that is undoubtedly a poor showing. Battlefield 5, for example, was a live service game, and DICE delivered on the content promises there. That game featured several expansions, and it added a total of 12 new maps, not including Firestorm's Hellvoid. At this juncture for Battlefield 2042, we are looking at a total of 4 new maps, one with each season. We're into Season 3 now, moving on to Season 4. No matter how you try to spin it, that just doesn't look good. DICE did announce that there is additional content coming after Season 4, but has not elaborated on what that might be. Regardless, any claim that developers are supporting the game beyond the bare minimum is a bit dubious at best. And it may sound like I'm throwing DICE under the bus here, but I want to stress the quality of the updates is there, but the quantity is not. And that is my main gripe with the live service for Battlefield 2042. I do also want to give credit to the small crew at DICE somehow still adding content to the game's oft-forgotten Hazard Zone game mode. I did not personally expect that. Performance-wise, DICE have made some significant improvements since launch. They've resolved the majority of technical issues that were present at the beginning, leading to a much smoother experience for players. In particular, many are reporting big bumps to FPS rates following the most recent update. Map reworks likely help tidy things up a bit by spending resources more wisely. DICE has also been working to resolve long-standing mouse input issues reported by PC players and continue to make progress on that front with more improvements in the update pipeline. Admittedly, I personally never experienced many issues to begin with, but they are even fewer and farther between. DICE also quietly added a bunch of accessibility options, from customizing the HUD to adding a dark mode for concussion grenades. Similarly, they just overhauled the game's ping and spotting system as well. This probably flew under the radar for a lot of players, but it does make Battlefield 2042 just feel more like previous titles, and I don't think that should be underrated. Outside of this discussion here, there still remain a few notable issues. A big one is user experience. Battlefield 2042 still does not have a server browser for the core game. This complicates joining on friends, and matchmaking after every game squashes the opportunities to build relationships with new players. DICE also continue to offer unreliable experiences. For example, traditional 64-player Conquest is not always an option outside of Portal. Developers routinely rotate in other specialized game modes, which leaves players with a choice of either 128-player Conquest or 64-player Breakthrough. This is very surprising to me because the franchise was built on 64-player Conquest, and it plays significantly better than the 128-player version. For me, no amount of tweaking or map reworks are going to change the fact that 128-player Battlefield is too unpredictable to be truly enjoyable. So, a year later, is Battlefield 2042 worth the price? Well, my answer to that is it depends. There have been plenty of opportunities to pick the game up at a heavily discounted rate. The gold version recently for sale on Epic Game Store for a mere $8. That's pretty hard to beat. It's also now available on Game Pass and EA Play, so if you have either of those services, it's just going to cost you some hard drive space. There's also some free trials on deck, so you can play it, decide for yourself if it's worth whatever the going rate price tag is at the time. However, at this juncture, Battlefield 2042, it's pretty much a known quantity. It does raise bigger questions for the future of the series, though, and EA supposedly has big plans. Battlefield has a new game director in Marcus Leto, and the franchise is now overseen by the legendary Vince Zampella of Titanfall and Apex Legends fame. Hopefully they've learned the necessary lessons and can change Battlefield's trajectory, but time will tell. Make sure you tell me what you think about the current state of Battlefield 2042. Are you happy with where the game is? What needs to improve? Tell me down below in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If not, a dislike. Make sure to subscribe, tap the bell to get updates on the latest Battlefield news. If you want to support the channel, keep your money, share this video. That goes a long way to help us out. And as always, thanks for watching.
Victory is ours, no pats.